Man, it's always a joy and a blessing when you get to talk school leadership with some of your favorite people. And that includes Smitty, even though he's Sigma. What up?
What's good with you, baby? I'm just say what's good. Greatness don't have to be explained, so that's all I'm gonna say to that.
Yeah.
So,
Man,
what's
so
good
all
with you?
right. Before we even jump into the show, man, we've been talking behind the scenes, but I want to play something for y'all because I want to get y'all's reaction, right? Because y'all two leaders that I respect, right? And so I wanna go into this.
Well, it's that time of year, couple days before school starts, and you know what's going to happen. It's inevitable, right? You're going to get those last second resignations. Folks are going to be coming in talking about, hey, I'm not coming back. When you have, in fact, had the whole summer in order to make this decision, right? And so if you're making a decision the last week, the last couple of days prior to coming back to school, I want to know how that's in the best interest of students. It's not. There's no way that you can convince me that making a decision up until the last day of you returning back to campus for students is going to be in the best interest of students. That decision is in the best interest of you, and it's not okay. It's not okay at all. I don't care how y'all try to rationalize it. Folks should not be submitting last second resignations, especially in the field of education.
All right, folks, go off.
Mm,
What what
mm.
what what y'all think, man? Because I'm hyped.
Uh, Fortunately, I've never had to experience that, so I'm gonna start with that. Start with that. There, I ain't never had to experience a last minute resignation.
Yeah.
But with that though, I mean, my thing is, would you rather for that person to resign last minute, or to be there and not be good for kids the whole school year? Like, what
No, I'd rather for that person to resign in January and let me know that they're not coming back in the fall so that we can do whatever workarounds that we need to do so that we can prepare for it. Because the
right?
hype of
That's
hiring,
best case. That's best case
no,
scenario.
bro,
But you got some
that's
people.
honesty. That's honesty, bro. That's the kind of people that you want. You want stand-up people that are gonna allow you to be able to do that. If you have said to yourself, you already have it resolved in your mind, I'm not coming back to the school next year, then what are you holding kids hostage for? Why are you waiting until August whatever date or whatever when you got PD the next day? When you know, and we have told you on seven different occasions, seven different occasions, because research says you got to say something to somebody 7 different times in order for them to get it, right? So on
I mean,
7 different occasions, you know you're going to get paid over the summer. You know you're getting paid, right? But you still make the decision that on the last day, I'm going to jam them up because I don't like the administrators. No, you hate yourself. It has nothing to
Maybe
do with you.
maybe that job offer didn't come through until last minute for you though. So you got to make that
Yeah,
move.
but then that goes
that's,
into the yeah, balls jump in here.
I was just gonna say. I mean, that's huge to know that you are leaning both ways. I think it would be great if you just informed your administration, hey, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Just as a heads up. I mean, as a courtesy, like I can start planning if I know that something's gonna happen. But also think about this as a member of a team. I mean, I think about sports, man. If you wait to the last minute, somebody else is gonna have to carry that load. Not just those students. It's impacting the rest of the folks on your staff,
Yes,
and
of
that's
course.
and that's
But,
wild.
but, but
That's
here,
wild.
But here's the thing, though, right? It's like when you're there, you purport to care about these people, right? So it's like, oh, that's my
Right.
team, and
Right.
I'm riding with them, and we're in this together, and this, and this, right? But then at the last second, when you're able to make a selfish decision, right? A decision that's not based or rooted in the fundamentals of what it looks like to be a team player, right? You make that selfish decision for yourself. And then they got all kinds of people that will sit up and will support and be like, oh, that person did what's in the best interest of them or whatever. But again, my question is, what about these kids? What about the kids? That's why we do
No,
education. Folks, if you're in the audience, we about to get the show started. Engaged podcast in the building. Fellas, I ain't do the check-in. We'll do it now. Smitty, how you doing, bro?
Man, I'm good, man. I'm back in Kansas City. I had the pleasure of going back home this past weekend and basically being recognized by the school district that I graduated from as the Spotlight Alumni of the Year.
Let's
So
go. Let's
basically,
go.
so it was
Celebrate.
a great time. Great
Yeah.
time. And also, Ball, David Manley told me to tell you what's up. He said he appreciate all the great work you're doing out there in Cali. So but
That's
yeah,
what's
it
up.
was a
That's
good
the
weekend,
homie.
man. And good weekend. And we got sixth grade transition day on Friday, man. We ready to we locked and loaded, ready to roll.
So sixth grade transition day. What does that look like for you guys?
So sixth grade transition day, basically a half a day for our sixth graders to come in and kind of get pre-acclimated to the building before the 7th, 8th graders come back. We have pretty much a half day of things set up for them. We're going to do a breakfast for them in the morning, kind of do an administrator welcome, kind of go over kind of who the main people around our staff is. And then we have two teams of sixth graders, team 1, team 2. So while team 1 is doing a tour of the building, team 2 will be going over expectations, routines, procedures, things like that. And then they'll flip-flop.
Yes, sir.
Then we'll do a quick run through of their entire schedule. Then they'll get their class of 2029 t-shirt, welcome to Grandview Middle School. And then we'll do the class picture, that we do every year. Take that class picture, give them lunch and some, some ices and things like that, and kind of party on our way out for the half a day and going into the weekend.
Love that, bro. Grandview Middle School in the building. KC Middle School Principal of the Year in the building, right? Yeah, hey, listen. I can't not shout you out, bro. Even though I think that if I was in Kansas City and I had a middle school, you wouldn't have won. Ball, what's happening, bro?
Hey, I'm making it. We finished day 6. So we're in the thick of it, and it has been an interesting ride. I'm finding out, who our school is and our school culture, and so I am adapting and bringing it. I'm bringing it.
Listen, bro, adaptation is that's the name of the game in school leadership, man. So let's jump into the show. We titled it what? Coach Up, Coach Out, right? And so we talked about our last second resignations, but let's get into some meat and potatoes, man. So what is instructional coaching? And Smitty, we'll start off with you. What's instructional coaching? When you hear instructional coaching, like what comes to your mind in terms of like, what you want other administrators to know about how they need to show up being instructional coach?
So for me, the first thing that comes to mind with instructional coach is partnership. Somebody that's going to come up alongside you and basically be kind of a human resource for you to assist you as a teacher, improving your instruction for student outcomes. And that can look in a variety of different ways. That could be, maybe you want them a model use of a strategy, or you might want to help them. Maybe you want them to come in and help you co-teach. You might need to have them do some data analysis. You might need them to go out and research the strategies and techniques, things like that, and get those resources that you can't get because you are the teacher in the classroom. So when I hear the word instructional coach, the first thing I think of is a partnership between that teacher and that resource, that other, individual that's coming alongside that teacher to really elevate and take them to that next level, whether it be for an entire unit, for a semester, or it might be just, hey, I want to try this new strategy I've seen done. Can you help me kind of get my head wrapped around it?
That's what's up. Ball, when you hear it, man, what's your take? What do you think about when you hear instructional coaching?
Very similar. I think you talk about a resource, someone that is strong in their pedagogy. They maybe specialize in the content area, but are just well-rounded, and they are there to support, take care of, and just do what's necessary in order to get those around them better. Just like Smitty said, provide those resources, setting up a plan in order to help engage them so that they can become better as teachers.
Yeah. And so, fellas, how important is that plan, right? So, like, it's like if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So, like, how important is it for you to start the year off with that plan? And what does your plan look like at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of this year? Like, what are some of the buckets that you have created as high priority ticket items that you're like, hey, we're gonna work on this?
So for me, we always kick off the year routines, procedures, expectations. That's always, the ground floor, making sure kids understand how the school day is going to flow, how a class period is going to flow. getting really kids that predictability. You know, we don't want anything to be a surprise to students when they walk into the school, walk into the classroom after that first week. So that's the first major thing we want to get established in that process. And then from there, really, our big thing, you know, is literacy every year, really focusing on literacy, identifying those kids that, you know, are on grade level, one grade level behind, two or more grade levels behind, and then to quickly start to build up those resources that we need to help those kids, whether that be, you know, putting them with our reading interventionists, whether that be getting them in, you know, with one of our instructional coaches in some small group, or doing some collaborative work with some of our SPED teachers in the classroom. And then finally, we, you know, to wrap up kind of our three priorities is that math piece. And our math teachers really have been rocking it out the last few years and getting kids identified early and coming up with those needed interventions early on in that process. But for me, the big thing starting up school year, that first week, 2 weeks is routine, procedures, expectations.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, before you jump in, man, I just want to send a message to the parents, right? So if you're a parent of a scholar, right, and your scholar had a rough year at the previous school and you have transferred your kid to another school in order to get them a fresh start, if they have been recommended for an IEP at the previous school, there is a high possibility that when the current school that you have them at does that battery of tests in order to determine what levels they're on, that same diagnoses will show up at the next school as well, right? And so just be open to having your child have an IEP. If you're not, realizing that there's a lot of stigma that's associated with IEPs, but hopefully you have a leadership team in this new school that you're going into that's going to allow you and explain to you the processes that go into place in terms of identifying your child and the types of supports that are going to come with your child being identified, because IEPs are not bad at all. Actually, they follow you to college. And you know, I've seen some people that don't look like us use them as extra leverage in order to get extra time on SATs and extended tests in college. So I think that that's something that we need to be open to. But Ball, jump in here, man.
Hold on. Can I just joke? Because when I was in Toledo, I went to support a fellow high school graduate classmate of mine who had brought in Dr. Umar Johnson. I'm not about to get into all that, but I definitely think we need to have a show and talk about IEPs, because he talked about how that IEPs are like the Antichrist, man. I really feel like they're setting parents up, especially Black parents, up for disaster with that kind of mindset. So I think we need to run up the show back and really talk about that.
But here's the thing, though, Smitty, and I'm with you, right? I feel like we should have a show. Maybe we'll have the next show and we'll dedicate it straight to like the IEP process. But I feel like when you have folks, I'm not gonna call him by name because I don't want to give that dude any more likes than what he already has, right? What I will say is this: I don't think that it's setting us as Black people up for success, right? I think it's sending us down the wrong road in terms of, like, because there's so much of a stigma that's associated and hitched to that IEP wagon, to where it's like anything that you say that's negative towards it is only going to create a storm for folks to kind of run away from it or whatever, right? So I feel like if we're going to have a conversation about it, it needs to be research-based. It does not need to be on the opinion of one person, right, who we're not clear if he defended his dissertation or not. All right, Ball.
Yeah.
What's up, baby?
You took me all the way off. What's our question again?
Hey, you know,
okay.
That's a gift, man. That's a gift right there. Wait, Smitty, what was I asking him? Oh, your high ticket items for the school year. Like, what are you jumping into?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're doing is coming back as a community. I think me being new to my campus is really the first part of the school year. I'm trying to find out what are our strengths, what are the areas that we have for opportunities of growth. And that takes a lot of effort on myself and my admin team, is to really get in those small groups, one-on-one sessions, and even large group when it comes to students, parents, and even staff, to get an understanding, you know, where have we been? I mean, I can look at the previous year's data. I can have conversations that are anecdotal to what happened last year. But I think, you know, in general, we've got a high performing school, and we need to do the best we can to, you know, really establish a vision that is clear in that we all own. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm gathering that data about who we are, what we truly value, so that we can establish that vision and attack those academic goals, whether it's the English language arts, whether it's getting more people, more of our student populations into advanced classes, or supporting more of those students that need those IEP services that we're talking about. So right now, we're in the learning and data gathering phase of where we are to truly assess where we're at as a school.
Yeah, love that. So Smitty, think about when you were in college, right? And this is kind of going back to what we were talking about with the IEP process. Think about when you was in college and you had that test and you was like, damn, man, I don't have enough time. I need more time. Think about if you had went into that test and you had all the time you needed, right? Like, yo, that's a game changer, bro. That's a game changer.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Right. Because I remember going to many professors' offices after tests and talking about that retest process.
Yeah.
Or giving them some sob story.
Bro, but that's another thing too. Like, you know, I feel like we need to do a show on like student connectedness in terms of like, you know, how you need to show up on that college campus. I don't think that a lot of us know the things that we need in order to be successful on a college campus. Like, you don't know that, hey, if you're failing a class, you need to go to this professor's office hours, right? You need to make sure that your face is that person knows your face. It is so difficult for a college professor to fail you if they have seen your face multiple times and see you giving like hella effort towards like passing that class. You might get out with a D. And if you get out of there with a D in a class that's not in your major, man, you won a battle. Especially if it's one of them science prerequisites, man. That's crazy. So Ball, how does instructional coaching look like to you? Like, what does that look like in terms of like, you know, gathering your coaches and getting them ready for greatness?
Yeah, I think the last 2 years have been the first years that I've actually had what we call MTSS, so multi-tier system of support, actually on our campuses, and they are great resources that, you know, we come together and we talk about what is it that we want to accomplish. I think one of the things that I've seen already so far is we have a tutorial block period in our day specifically to provide like that tier 2 intervention for our students, and we don't have a solid process for us to utilize that. So working with my coaches, working with my admin team, so we can establish a plan so that we can first identify, because we have, you know, we've got those pre-assessments that we're taking early to understand, okay, these are where these students are at, you know, based on the curriculum standards, they should be at a certain spot where they, in this school year, they're not there yet, or, you know, they're slowly progressing. We need to establish that intervention process so that those students are identified, they get to the teacher, they get to the standard reassessment process as quickly as possible.
Yeah, man, thanks for sharing that, man. I'm gonna throw this guy on the stream because this guy did a leadership bro, he had like a leadership celebration, like a leadership introduction celebration. So Smitty, talk to us about like just like how you invested in your leaders prior to the school year and how important that is.
Yeah, so last Wednesday we had our building leadership team retreat, you know, right here at Casa Lay, Dr. Smith. But basically, we brought them in, and basically, first of all, I kind of just did some team building. Brought our, you know, how do we come together as a team? And my building leadership team is made up of my admin team, my 2 instructional coaches, and then some teachers that had to apply to be on the leadership team. And then basically, they're kind of like those coaches in the classroom that we can kind of peer observation, peer coaching that we can do. Maybe if the instructional coach is working with some other teachers that need a little bit more support. But after we kind of got the team building stuff done and really talked about our goals for the year, looked at some data from last year, we then said, hey, here's what our goals are. Here's what our data said last year. How do we go about building a plan to get there, to get to those goals that we had? You know, it's one thing to set a goal, but it's another thing to have a clear plan that's really tangible, that has step-by-step processes. So in our school improvement plan, we use what we call a 30, 60, 90-day plan. So we have basically the first 30 days, here what we're going to do. Here in the 60 days, here what we're going to do, here what we're going to do. And then we also have within there, here are our measures of success. Here's our evidence of success to make sure we're hitting those benchmarks along the way. And then once we hit that benchmark, what is the next step? So really that's what we mapped out last Wednesday basically for the first 30 and 60 days of school based on our goals that we have around literacy, around math, and around culture and climate in our building. And then in the afternoon, we went to Top Golf just to kind of have some fun, eat some good food, and kind of basically, once again, do some more team building. But then the best part, though, today, our teachers on that team are the ones that presented that presented our school improvement plan to the rest of the staff. The administration and the coaches, we sat back and just watched and seen our teachers take the lead in that process and really tell them, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're invested in, and take the lead. So that is something that we are definitely trying to do this year, is empower more teacher leaders in the building.
Bro,
so Doc,
listen, the impact that is given to teaching and the learning process on behalf of teachers when it's delivered from their peers, it's just so much different than when it's coming from like a top down, right? So like it's kind of like when peers are in the classroom together, right? Like they learn better from each other than they would from any adult giving them direction. But jump in, Ball.
I was just gonna say, Doc, where did you come up with that process? Is that something that you were coached on?
Yeah, so basically, my former boss, Dr. King, and our superintendent, Dr. Rodriguez, they brought in these two authors, Dr. Perry and Dr. Budge, who wrote the book Turning High Poverty Schools into High Performing Schools. And it's a model that they use around basically, we start the process, really the first steps is we do a root cause analysis. And we really do some driver diagrams on, okay, if attendance is the issue, well, why is attendance the issue? Well, kids ain't getting to school. Well, why aren't kids getting to school? Well, they're having issues with transportation. Why are they having, really digging in deep, and then say, okay, based on that, what can we do as a school to address those issues? And we started that process 3 years ago, and we just kind of continue to build on it and get better at it the more we do it. We've tweaked, some things within our template that we use, but really understanding the process more. I'm better equipped to understand the process now. And really the one thing that we wanted to do this year, because I felt like last year what we did with the process, we created a lot of tools and things that we wanted teachers to use. And this year we're really focused on implementation of the things that we created last year through that 30, 60, 90-day process.
So here's the thing though, right? So like you talked about root cause analysis, right? And I think that's something that we kind of need to stick on for a second, because a lot of folks that are in school leadership, right? And we're giving y'all insider baseball. If you're a parent and you're listening to this right now, if you're a teacher and you're listening to this right now, you can attest to this. You know what's going on in these buildings. A lot of leaders don't even care enough to get down to what the root cause is. Right? It's like they put these band-aids over the problem. And because they put these band-aids over the problem, it's like, oh, well, it's solved for a little while, right? But then things explode. And when you don't sweat the small stuff in these buildings, other things manifest, right? And so, definitely root cause analysis. Every leader should be doing that. Free PD coming at you right now. Live free PD. Yeah.
Can we jump on Carla's questions? I mean, she has, a point, like basically we've been doing it for 3 years. She wants to know kind of what the impact was. And we are super excited about the data that we looked at from last school year, because everybody knows COVID just took place. Everybody's been talking about learning loss and all that stuff like that or whatever. I'll start with our best numbers. Since pre-COVID, we've been able to cut discipline in our school, focusing on climate and culture. And our biggest root cause analysis was teachers and students didn't have the strategies to interact with each other when they didn't agree upon something. So the things that we did as far as, focusing on expectations, routines, procedures at the beginning of the school year, building relationships, doing our reconnection conferences when kids, are out of the classroom for an extended period of time in a loss of instructional time consequence. We've been able to cut discipline 40% after COVID. So when everybody in the country is talking about how discipline has gone up and their buildings have been off the chain, our numbers are down 40% in the number of referrals and loss of instructional time consequences. And what I mean by that is OSS, ISS type of consequences. As far as our student achievement data, we are actually in math we are scoring higher at about 65% of our kids either being on grade level or one grade level behind after COVID, when we were sitting at about 60% pre-COVID. And then later in reading, we're almost at 70% of our kids being on grade level or one grade level behind. And our goal this year.
Listen, bro. That sounds cappy right there, bro. That sounds cappy. No. I know we're talking to the middle school, the KC
middle school principal of the
year, right? And I want you to throw your numbers out there, and I want you to tout that, and I want you to do this at the front. But hey, here's what I want you to come back to us with, right? We're not talking about no goddamn one grade level behind. We're talking about on grade level. I don't want to hear the combination of those.
You do. Hold on. So let me give you that. Let me give you that, because I went somewhere and spoke this year. And they talked about that. We do want to get our kids on grade level. But when I got kids coming to me 3, 4, 5 grade levels behind to get to the 1 grade level behind in the year is still progress.
You
got to tell progress.
I don't want to hear that. Excuses are the tools of the incompetent. Those that
trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. You fulfilling? You fulfilling? You know what I said?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Nobody should be fulfilling. Everybody should move. Mama Toya, we forgive you for being from Philly. But
wow.
Anyway, Philly dangerous, bro.
I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna wrap it up with this year we are looking for 80% of our kids to be that tier 1, tier 2 with a minimum of 50% of our kids performing at grade level.
You see, this is where it gets tricky. This is where it gets tricky. This is where it gets tricky. Hey, I care about tier 2. I care about tier 3. But when we are talking the overall data picture, right? We are talking about the kids that are proficient, right? We're not talking about almost proficient. We're talking about the kids that are proficient. Practice. You talking about practice? We're not talking about practice, bro. We're talking about the game, bro. We're talking about the game. We're not talking about practice, bro. So next time you come up in here, you touting these numbers and you beating your chest, I want to know the kids that are proficient.
I'm gonna tout them the same way because, like I said, when you don't, like I said, that's like you don't give kids credit for the work that they are doing. We like you already said, we don't care if you
man, you Umaring in here, man.
Now you hating. Now you hating. Now you hating. Now you hating.
All right, bro. But congrats to you. Congrats to your scholars, man. I super appreciate it. And so Ball, man, jump in here, bro.
One of the things that I'm thinking based off of Dr. Smith is talking about is, he's had 3 years to grow in his school, and I think that's a challenge within administration. I mean, I'm at a new school, and making sure that you're retaining an administrative team, and that there is continuity in the plan. I feel like, whether it's district level or, your system level, we tend not to stay with one system or one frame of thought or one, product that we are aiming for in that system. And when we don't consistently use that system at the district level, at the school site level, that's not going to give us the numbers and growth that Dr. Smith is able to speak to. And so, and that goes to that coaching as well. If we're not, at the district level being coached to say, hey, this is where we're going to focus. This is what we're going to build this into our leaders. We're going to build this into our coaches. If we're not investing there, it's really tough to see those gains that our principal of the year.
Let's get Smitty some love, man, because that background is popping. Yo, Smitty is winning this week, man. Smitty is out here winning this week, bro. You got man, just came back being celebrated. KC Middle School Principal of the Year, my man, right there, man. You the main draw on this show, bro. Listen, so Smitty, because Ball wasn't with us last year, right? But I want to send a little message to one of our folks, right? So we had a delightful experience last year. We went to a shindig in Indianapolis, right? And talk to us about that whole process and why we should be invited back, because I'm waiting. I'm waiting for my invitation.
So we gonna keep everything anonymous at this point, but we had a chance to go to a city and visit a school and really go to a fundraiser activity and really see some work that this system is doing with Black and brown kids. But I think when the rubber met the road and we wanted to get down to the nitty gritty, because the work they had us doing, it was good work that we was doing with teachers. And I want to say every teacher we worked with is now in a higher position. They ain't in the classroom no more. Every teacher we work with is either now an instructional coach, a principal, assistant principal. So we definitely, got the power to move people up. But then we kind of ran the circle back, like, hey, you need us to coach your admin team because your school's not making the gains they could be making because your admin team doesn't know how to put the proper people in place from a coaching standpoint, a leadership standpoint, a peer mentoring standpoint. I think that's the focus we want to try to shift to now, is really helping the leadership team and have that trickle down effect to their teachers. But the proof is in the pudding. Every teacher we work with is now doing bigger things than being in the classroom, and we did that in 1 year. So,
bro, I would move to Indy.
you just gonna put out where we went.
Yo, you put it out there.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I was
yeah,
just casually saying I would move to Indy. Anyways,
So,
let's segue into peer.
and on a side note, I tried to go be the principal at that school, but the figures didn't work out. They weren't talking the right kind of money.
Really? You didn't tell me that.
It was a little side conversation.
Oh, wow.
So hey, you see how this dude is moving? You see how the KC
wild.
Middle School Principal of the Year is moving out here?
He said that, and his people are in the chat.
Right, but realize how that would have how that would have set Engage up though, man. That would have, hey, that's good thinking right there, man. I appreciate you. All right, so because it's all about us. So Ball, man, talk to me about peer mentorship, or no, I'm sorry, not peer mentorship, peer observations, right? Because like, you know, we're honing in on this coaching piece, you know, coach up or coach out. Don't worry about it. We're gonna get to this coach out piece because that's very important for me. I want y'all to know how to walk away from the game. So peer coaching, man. What you thinking about that?
You know, I think that could be a critical part of growing your teachers, especially your young teachers, and even your veteran teachers. Mm-hmm. And there's a requirement of a level of humility when that happens, because you see a lot of teachers that get in their silos, and they get comfortable in what they've done, and they're relying on stuff that has worked, but who's it worked for? And when you get that fresh set of eyes, that can just take you to a whole nother level. When you got someone that's coming in, it's not anything that's evaluative necessarily, and you're saying, hey, you know what, we're trying to grow, we're trying to make these gains, and whatever our content area is, and they give that fresh perspective. And when you're open to receiving that as the person being observed at the moment, it can take you far. And I think it builds that camaraderie that we want to see, that community that we want to see. So I think that can be crucial to that professionalism within education and that growth that we all need to see.
I love that. Smitty, jump in here.
So for me, and I'm not going to act like I came up with this on my own, or I came up with this idea. I'm actually studying from somebody, so I'm gonna give credit because I don't want to get hit for plagiarism. But Alexis Sorden. Dr. Alexis Sorda, who is actually the principal at Concourse Village Elementary in, I believe, the Bronx, in South Bronx. I watched some of the work that she's done, and she talked about her peer coaching model. And what she does is when she first goes in, kind of observes her teachers and kind of finds out what is that area of growth that they can move to the next level in. And then she basically peers or partners them up with a teacher who is already proficient in that area. So when they go into that classroom, if you have an issue with transition, she's going to have them, hey, when you go in, I want you to just look at her transitions. And here's some guiding questions, some things, some look fors I want you to go for. And then basically when they come out, there's like some questions they kind of write out, some follow-up questions they answer. And then those two teachers get together and have that conversation on, hey, when you made this transition, or when you did this, or when you kind of use this proximity, get some clarification. Or, hey, you have issue with grouping and monitoring kids in groups. So when you go in there, I want you to watch how she puts her kids in the groups and how she monitors each groups and how she's asking guided questions as she moves from groups to groups. So I think as you do that peer coaching piece, you want to be very intentional when that teacher goes into the other teacher's classroom on what are they looking for.
Yeah,
they can't just go in there looking, with the water hose mentality trying to see everything. You want them to go looking for something specific that is going to move their instruction forward in that process. And like I said, I got that from Dr. Sorden out of the South Bronx, who I think we should definitely have on the show at some point.
Yeah, hey, I'm looking for guests. Hey, listen, one of the things that Ball, jump in here, man, because
I was just going to say real quick is, when you go into that room and you're looking for that specific thing, would you, and this is, I guess this is a question for both of you, would you look at something that they're strong at, or would you look at an area that they need to improve on when it comes to coaching up at that peer?
So my thing is, I feel like in the beginning of trying to do a peer observation model, you want to do it to get those glows. You want to get people confident and be able, because I think it's easier for people to give compliment to their peers than to try to criticize them. So I think in the beginning, I want you to go in and find this good thing that they're doing. And then as we build confidence and get that vulnerability built in that you talked about, we can then switch and say, hey, when you go in, look at this, and then just don't even guide them. Hey, I want you to go in and maybe they do struggle with transition. Look at how they do transitions, and then hopefully in that conversation when they have it, hey, I noticed when you did that transition, kids weren't kind of with you. Here's what I would recommend you do. But I think in the beginning, you definitely want to be on the positive side.
Yeah. So what I did was, and this is all originated by me. It may be paraphrased, so therefore I don't really necessarily have to cite, but I'll cite myself. Anyways, so what what I've done
now that's capping right there.
Yeah, it is. Hey, it is. But hey, my numbers look all right though, so I can cap all I want. So what we did was I had some really strong teachers, right? And I created a project. I was like, hey, we're gonna call this the Do Now Project, right? And so what I did was I had them go and I had them tape every teacher's Do Now, right? And so in taping every teacher's Do Now, I then wanted them to bring to me the top 5% of the Do Nows in which they saw, right? And so we then use those Do Nows as like coachable instruments in order for folks to see exactly what they're supposed to do when they perform a Do Now, right? And so my goal this year is to push my leaders to not just do the Do Now project, but to cut up all aspects of a lesson, right? And then take those lessons that are like top 1% so that you can now see like modeled instruction in terms of like how it's supposed to be, right? And then also I've seen some peer feedback get like real down and dirty, especially when you have those folks that really care about their school. It's like they will take the gloves off, right? They will go in there and they will like, listen, you need to be doing this, and this, right? And it's like, as a teacher, getting that kind of feedback from your peer, you have no excuse but to implement that, right? Because that is coming from a person that is on the same level as you, telling you like, hey, you definitely have the capabilities of being able to do this because I do this, right? I do this on a daily basis. And if you want to see me do this, I can make and create space in order for you to come in and see me model doing this, right? It is so powerful when you got teachers that are invested in your system, that are willing to be peer mentors for folks that are newly fermented into your system.
So I got a follow-up question for both of y'all in that process. So in that post conversation between those two peers, is a leader from the admin team in that conversation, or are you strictly leaving it to them?
It could be, but I think initially, right? Before you get to your part two, initially it needs to be a peer-on-peer conversation, right? Because again, they're building that rapport, right? And a lot of times they have rapport with one another, right? Because like a lot of times we'll pair people with that have been in the building together for years, right? So like there's no like getting to know you stage. We can kind of skip past that whole like what are the glows. We can get right to the grows, like how we gonna help these kids, right? Because like you can have because when you're doing peer feedback, it takes at least like to do a cycle. It takes about like 6 weeks because you're making space and you're making time for these teachers to be able to go into each other's classrooms. Whereas if you kind of tear down those walls and you're like, hey, we're going to focus on transitions, or you go through Danielson and you're like, hey, this is what we're focused on in terms of like when leaders are coming to observe you. And so if peers know that, hey, they're focusing on Daniel 2A, right? So like we're going to focus on this when I'm doing my peer feedback, it better prepares that teacher for the formal observation when you think about it like that.
And my part two to that was if a leader isn't in that conversation, that post conversation, because I'm a firm believer in what monitors what gets done. How do you hold teachers accountable to make sure those conversations are taking place post observation?
So, but you're doing a lot of the pre-work prior to, like when you're doing a lot of pre-work in terms of like the observations, that the peer observations that are being had, you're telling them what the look fors are, right? And then if you go in after that, because it's not just on the peer in order to give the feedback, you as the leader have to do your job too. So like you got to go in and then you got to observe to see if you see the same things, to see if the notes match up. And so then when you're having your post conversation with that person, and then some of the same things that are coming up, you're asking those questions like, well, hey, what did you talk about when your peer did their observation, right? Like what were some of the learnings from that, and like what were some of the tools that were talked to you about being able to implement because of this or whatever, right? And it's nothing to bring them both together, right? To have like a collaborative team meeting so that it could always be that continual growth process. And so what leaders have to understand and what folks have to understand that are watching this is not a I got you moment, right? This is more so still that whole coaching up piece, right? We're building capacity by doing it this way. We're not to the coach out yet. We're almost there, but we're not there yet.
So, and I asked those questions because, like I said, we offering this free PD, so make sure y'all like and share this. But so if a new leader wants to kind of do that peer coaching, so they understand that they need to be just as hands on with this process and not hands off, because if you are hands off, it's gonna crash and burn.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking that clarifying question, man. That was a nice setup, Mr. PhD. Appreciate you. Ball, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm kind of thinking off of Dr. Smith's question when it comes to, being present in that discussion. I think that there is, there's value in those peers having that discussion, and then following up with each person one-on-one, the person that's being observed and is doing the observing, like, hey, what did you see when you went in there? What did you kind of focus on? And then, when you have that opportunity to have a conversation with the person that was observed, it could be, this is what I heard you focused on. What did you learn? What have you changed? Have you changed anything, since you got that feedback? So that, I can, as the administrator that would be doing an evaluation, I can say, okay, you already have an idea of what you're going to work on. So this is what I'll be looking for and trying to figure out how I can support you, using our coaches or myself.
Or you could front load the work, right? You could front load it. Administrators could go in and they could already have their feedback already done in terms of like, what the glows or grows are going to be. And then have peers go in and do the same thing and then see if it aligns, right? See if there's their calibration in terms of like what the peer feedback looks like, right? So like you already know. So like, I feel more comfortable with the front load piece because then it takes it kind of takes the onus off of the peer in terms of like, creating that divide, that fracture that it could create from like a bad peer interaction, right? But like if a person already knows like, hey, admin don't really think too highly of me in this teaching that I'm doing, right? And then that peer that peer interaction it can't really have that much of an effect because you already know that, looking kind of saucy Santana. All right. So coaching out, man. So when you hear coaching out, right? Because coaching out can be extremely problematic, right? But Smitty, you famous for this, man. 2 ways: coach up, coach out.
Coach out.
Right. So when you hear coaching out, Smitty, what's your initial thoughts?
So my first 2 initial thoughts when it comes to coaching out, one is I got to do what's best for students. And obviously, we done coached up as much as we could, and you're not catching it. And you're not just good for students. And our students aren't performing. You aren't moving students. And that could be, from a classroom management standpoint. That could be from an instructional standpoint. But obviously, there's something missing. And my second thing with the coaching out piece is documentation.
Facts.
Like you have to have your documentation on. Hey, we did this professional development. I had the coach go in and do this coaching round with them. We gave them, I put them on an improvement plan. Here was their goals of their improvement plan. Here's all the meetings we had. Here's all my observation, my follow-up observations. So that documentation piece, if you really want to coach somebody out, your documentation game has to be A1. Like you got to be the Michael Jordan of documentation when you're trying to coach
PD.
Especially if they already tenured.
Hey, let me tell you something, man. You are, man. Listen, I don't know, what kind of prep work you did, but I don't know if it's just ingrained in your spirit to be able to talk and give this lesson you're giving right now. But man, you are preaching right now because bro, you can't be a John Paxson, man. You cannot be a John Paxson and write these things up and be all cavalier about it, man. You got to have your documentation super tight. Right, in terms of like all of the things that you have done in order to coach that person up, in order to build capacity for that person, especially if they're tenured. If you are a tenured teacher in the majority of these systems, you are a movable object. You cannot be moved, right? But you can be moved if you got a Michael Jordan of documentation, right? If you got a LeBron or a RIP Kobe of documentation, you can be moved, right? And so I'm trying to build capacity. I got my folks in the weight room right now, man. I got them, coming, doing the Euro steps and the crossovers right now, getting ready to be master documenters, right? Because that's what you need in order to do what you first said. do what's in the best
And
interest of students. It's
and
not
let me add
personal.
one thing, that you can't do this alone. Like, you need to have your instructional coaches on board. You need to have your assistant principal on board. You need to have your HR department. Like, everybody needs to be lockstep in this process on, like, this is where we're heading to.
Yeah, and talking about coaching, I think that HR component is really key, because you just feel like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I don't, I want to get this person out of here. But if you don't bring that HR piece, like, because they're gonna tell you some specific things and some specific language that you need to have in that documentation in order for you to get that out that you want, and for it to be all in the up and up, whether in the contract language and all those types of things.
Yeah, man. Listen, you guys have knocked it out of the park, right? And I definitely appreciate that. You got somebody in the audience that's like, documentation matters. Whose school is that?
That's my former admin assistant who has left me, but she's now working for the Department of Defense, so I ain't mad at her. She making big cheese. So
hey, listen. Hey, we know Dr. Smith was feeding you right, but now you can feed yourself. So shout out. All
I
right?
coached her up some more. She left me and went to a bigger place. So
yeah, we got Mama Toya in the audience. Shout out Mama Toya
that.
for coming through, kicking it. We got Miss Tussin. I don't know if you from down south. It could be Tucson, right? If she's from Louisiana, that could be what, Tucson? No.
I just want to point out, she put that there when we was talking about them numbers at GMS. Just put that out there. Keep it moving though.
Did she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So hey, listen, we came, we conquered, man. It's like when you come to give a lesson, and you on the clock, and they only paying you for the amount of time that you're on the clock for. Hey, we're off the clock now. So final thoughts, Dr. Smith.
Hey, so my final thoughts is, coaching is not something that you learn overnight or do overnight. I know you're going to have instruction. Most of you probably have instructional coaches, MTSS people, but I really feel like you need, as a leader, to have that coaching in you. So this is a book that I go to a lot, The Coach's Approach to School Leadership. So you know how we do here. I'm going to drop 5 of these books. All you got to do is hit me up on Twitter, hit my inbox on Twitter. Tell me you want one, and I'm going to get you one of these books. Trust me, you want to have this book if you're a school leader and you're trying to coach up your staff. Basically, The Coach's Approach to School Leadership, leading teachers to high levels of effectiveness. So hit me on Twitter and you can get a book, the first 5.
Bro, so you only got 2, you only got 3 left, because I already hit you on Twitter.
I'll say the other one for everybody else. I won't.
Hey, well,
I won't jump
you.
in. Is that?
Bro,
it's for the people. It's for the people.
I'm the people. Wait, what? Yeah, what's your final thought?
I will say this, as always, I love being with y'all. This is one of the highlights of the week. But I do want to point out, today is August 17th, and it's Marcus Garvey Day in Jamaica. I think that, we need to do what we can as a people to understand our history, to remember the people that come before us. His focus was on educating Black people, and we need to make sure that President Biden does the right thing and can pardon Marcus Garvey, who was, set up like the government does. And this is a great opportunity for our country to step up and just show, we value Black people, we value our history. He was all about education, and it was just something we can lean into his thoughts. And I'll just share a quote with him for you from him. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. We got to be rooted in our greatness as Black people.
So I'm not saying anything that's anti-American. I disavow from all of these these people. Listen, hey.
If you defended it, why can't you criticize?
I'm not. Yeah, that's true. That's 100% correct. We got two former armed service folks that are here that are now in school leadership. And so, you know what? This show ain't gonna end now, man. Because now that we talking about we talking about veterans, we gotta take it down to Florida. Man, do y'all think based off of y'all's experience of being former armed service folks, right? Ball, you West Point, right?
Yeah.
Man, that's the pinnacle of, like, bro.
Yeah.
And Smitty, you Air Force,
which is the pinnacle of the military. But go ahead.
which
Is it though? Is it though?
That's Cappy. But how we feel about DeSantos and making veterans teachers? Like, do we think that that's a good idea?
Not when
I definitely don't. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can't just step into a classroom and teach if you don't understand pedagogy. I mean, I don't care what you say. Like, and you know, there's a sense of pedagogy. You have to know how to teach a content, and sometimes the military they ain't taught you nothing about that with the military. Now I get that he's probably trying to find a way to kind of get veterans jobs that probably need jobs down there, whatever. But there's a better way than doing that, because I'm pretty sure if there was a shortage on surgeons, they weren't gonna just go grab somebody off the street and throw them in the operating room. So I feel like it's a disrespect to educators everywhere when you feel like, oh, we just need a warm body in the room. Like I feel like that's straight disrespect.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, man. And then Smitty, a ball.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, Dr. Smith got like 12 degrees, and in order to get to his spot into these spots, like, you just don't show up and that just rely on that military experience. I mean, you're in for a rude awakening if you expect these students or these teachers to just automatically respect you because of your rank at once upon a time.
And I'm gonna say, boy, in the military, you fall in line. Like, we don't care what they ask you, just fall in line. And in the real world, it don't work like that. So some of these little lieutenants or captains about to step into these classrooms gonna get a rude awakening when Keisha and them pop off on them.
Bro, Keisha then, boy, hey, hey, when they hit that first Glorilla track, talk about yo, go off. Rude awakening, boy. Hey, listen, man. I don't know. But anyway, thank you guys for sharing that, man. I appreciate that. And you guys, thank you guys for everything that you do, that you have done for our country, and what you continue to do for our country with being in the classroom and being valued educators in the education space, man. It's really a pleasure. I'm really proud to not be behind the scenes, but actually be on the scenes and learning from y'all every week, every couple of weeks, man. Appreciate that. So my final thoughts are, if you are a teacher, give your letter of resignation in January. Have enough confidence within yourself that you are going to be able to go out and get the job of your dreams. Build rapport with your administration staff so that they are writing you letters of recommendation and they are doing everything that sets you up for success in your next area of work, right? Do not hold these kids hostage. Do not hold these families hostage by submitting a letter of resignation at the last minute because you didn't have enough confidence in yourself to go out and get the job that you felt like you needed to get, and you're holding these kids hostage. It's not okay. It's not okay for educators. It's not okay for these kids, because we can't say that we love these kids if we're not genuinely doing what's right by them all the time, right? So let's put these kids first. All right. You guys have been listening to the Engage podcast. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace.